Hello, this is the Blast Report podcast on all things blasting. My name is Evan Tebow with New Wave Consulting, and I want to thank all the drill and blast teams along with those supporting them who are out there on the pattern. The production team at Blast Think and I would like to welcome you to today's episode of the Blast Report podcast. This episode of the Blast Report podcast is brought to you by Detecht. Detecht is a specialized engineering firm focused on third-party vibration monitoring. Historic structures, critical infrastructure, and nuclear power plants are included in Detecht's long list of projects where compliance was absolutely key. Not only does Detecht install and maintain an array of instrumentation, but they are also a certified dealer of White Industrial Seismographs. It's their goal that all dynamic monitoring solutions be at your service nationwide. This women-owned and family-operated business traces its roots back to our guest, Cathy Amione-Martin, and would like to take this opportunity to thank her for her mentorship and support over the years. So contact Detecht for applied research on your next project at www.detecht.com. Did you do the blasting for the highest, skinniest building right next to downtown in Manhattan?
The big one that's got the over... it's now called the
super skinny one,
Nordstrom building.
I think so.
Yeah, it's now called the that we started on that.
I figured you probably.
It took 30 years to design that, and then in New York City,
there's so skinny, right?
Yeah, it's pretty skinny.
I heard like no one lives in it. It's like this big. It was this big real estate boom, and then they bought up, and no one's actually
Nordstrom building. No, this one is okay. So the skinny one, I think, is on Park Avenue. It's around the corner. Yeah,
yes.
Nobody's in that one. Yeah, that
like
one.
Park Avenue or something like that. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, nobody's in it. I know. Then we did the Nordstrom building. It was the last one. And that was interesting because I've got a book called High Rise. Okay. And it talks about how you condemn buildings, old buildings in New York, the condemnation procedure, how long it takes in designing. You don't have no idea what you're going to build, but you've got this valuable piece of land. And you're going to build something where there's going to have some business at the bottom and then penthouses and all these high-end condos up on top. And people will come. Chinese, Russians, they're all over the place.
They're all going to come.
And so we watched this process as we were blasting 90 feet because the elevator going up, the buildings, the tall buildings they're making now cannot be any higher than World Trade Center. Number one, the Freedom Tower that
there is a rule, yeah.
What's his name? Was designing because he lost. What's his name? Oh shoot!
I don't know. I wouldn't know.
Anyway, he owned the Twin Towers.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, Larry Silverstein,
the one who was pulled out the insurance program right before.
That's exactly what happened. When that happened, he was expecting to get $4 or $5 billion for insurance, but that the insurance company took it as not 2 events, but 1 event. So he got only half of what he was anticipating getting. So he had to get partners. And of course they weren't going to call it World Trade Center or Freedom Tower. Yeah. So while we were doing the foundation for the new transportation hub, we were watching this thing go up right next to us. And just that whole process and what was going on and the politics of that was just overwhelming. And that was our first job. And we were called in to do. And I learned a lot about New York there.
That was one of your first?
That was my first job in New York City, was the World Trade Center. And that's when Albert Bannekerk, who bought the Emigres Underwater Blasting Company, he was one of my PhD students. He and I were doing the Columbia River underwater job. And Jimmy Lauer, who was the explosive unit chief of the fire department in New York City, called us and said, "Get here quick." And so we need to get going on this. The union blasters and the union drillers, we have to redo this transportation hub because when the towers came down, they went right through all the subways. Mm-hmm. And so they destroyed the main station there. And so it had to be done quick. And so he knew of us. We'd seen him before, talked to him. And I remember flying from Portland, where we were working on the river there, and into New York and going downtown with Tudor Perini and standing in their office overlooking the bathtub, they called it. And he was explaining, we got to get this going now. We need blast consultants. We need to help these guys. They don't even know how to use the blasters. Weren't sure what to do. And so long story short, so we decided, well, let's do it. We need to do this. Mm-hmm. It's important. So he had already bought the underwater blasting company that was in New Jersey, on the Bayonne, New Jersey. He had an office there. So at least we just pulled up our sleeves, brought Kristen Colden out to help us, and a lot of other people, and we got it going. We got it done in 4 months. And then other people saw us doing that. And so that's why there were other people who were developing new buildings and that sort of thing that had us come to help with the blasters, because it's all union. They can't hire private. It has to be union blasters for.
Were you there? Y'all, was it in the middle of that or right before when they found the old ship?
It's not funny you said that, because I was going to bring that on. Yeah, we were there. And I just looked that up, and I was going to put it in the talk, but I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I got some great pictures of it. Yeah, we had to shut down everything and go home for a few weeks, while they took that ship. And yeah.
Oh, what are these 2 pieces of wood? Why are there? Oh,
they were the ribs.
Yeah, these are the ribs of this ship.
Yeah,
and you're like,
it was amazing.
How old is this ship?
Very old.
And then you were like, okay.
I was just. How did you hear about that?
I think I was.
Isn't that funny?
I think I was
Just
watching
looking it up.
TV with my father.
Yeah.
And it was on TV.
Yeah.
It's like
It's 2010. Yeah.
Earth, something like
15 years ago.
Mysteries Undiscovered or something.
It was. There's a lot of those things we see. And thank God it's now in a museum someplace. But yeah, that was funny.
Good on the people and the blasters for actually doing it, because you got certain types of mentality of people like, that's going to slow us down, drill through it.
Exactly.
Exactly. I've been on work sites where someone's like, oh, that's a really cool fossil.
Yeah.
Kick that over the berm. We don't want to slow down.
Somebody's
no,
skull.
like this is so much history.
It is.
Maintain.
We've
this,
had it has happened in Bend, Oregon, a lot of the places on the Pacific Northwest. We will find skulls and we'll find buried bodies, and we have to stop. We just have to call the archaeologists out, and they have to coordinate the whole thing out and take piece by piece, and it just slows down the job. But that's something we have to do.
Is it
Exactly.
are the burial grounds that are just unmarked and unknown?
Right. Yeah, because they're 200 or 300 years old.
You get the archaeologists on site.
Exactly.
They extract all of the equipment and then decide if it is a
pottery,
historic
jewelry. There's money sometimes. Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's not just the item, right? It's how it's left.
Exactly. Sometimes burials, are ceremonial. Yeah.
It's not so much just, oh, we have a skull here and an arrowhead. It's where was it placed? What's the scene?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They really find out. Yeah. And then what? So blasting all stops, and then you just they get their information. They say maybe we don't know, and now time to continue.
We come back
or you got to work with the locals and decide whether or not that's a sacred site.
That's a good point. There are some places that have they're sacred, and they have to redesign somehow. Yeah, that rarely happens. But
I'm a caver, not like big time, but I like going caver. Yeah. And so I'll go and
that's
around Chattanooga. There are Native American burial grounds, and some caves they aren't closed, aren't locked up. Yeah. No one knows about it.
I know.
And they don't want the government to know about them.
Exactly.
Because
I found that out in New Mexico when we came there. And there's some petroglyphs that are inside some of these caves. They don't want anybody to know about it. Because it's amazing.
Absolutely.
What's out there.
What's really cool is a buddy of mine, there's settings on your phone. When you take a photo and you can change the contrast and you can change all the different imaging. Your regular phone can take photos of some rock. And your naked eye can't really tell that it's a pictograph.
Yeah.
And with just going into your basic settings on your regular iPhone or something, it will highlight pictographs that you just didn't even know were there.
Interesting.
Very, very cool. I forget.
Is that part of AI?
No. This is super basic. It's just like you could just increase the reds or something. I don't even remember. He showed it to me once, and I was like,
it really makes it pop.
And it actually makes it pop enough for you to be like, wow, I didn't even know that you noticed that.
Oh, that's a good
point.
With
that, it's very, very cool.
So you do that when you cave a little bit?
He does.
Yeah.
And I'll just go caving. I'm more for the thrill of it, dropping into a 200-foot pit, on a rope, and you're just hanging in the abyss, and that's cool. And then you just climb out and you're like, what did we do today? Well, we went in a hole and we came out.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't even walk around.
It's exploring.
It's called Moses' Tomb.
I love it. I love it.
Valhalla, these caves.
Tennessee's
world famous for
absolutely. Well, we've got the lava tubes in Hawaii, and so the lava tubes, you don't know that they're there until you drill through them or whatever. But they are protected. So on one job at Kiewit, one of the first jobs I had with Kiewit and Kauai, we were ready to do our first blast, and they said, "You better come to the office quick. There's this girl here crying." And she was getting her PhD in the blind wolf spiders that live in these tubes. And I remember the guy, the main blaster came and said, I don't know what to do. She's crying because she thinks we're going to destroy her PhD thesis work. She's got these lava tubes. She puts these pans with filter paper on it to look at the degradation and the weathering and all that sort of thing. And she's worried about the blind wolf spider because they can't see their food in these tubes, but they rely on vibrations of these little amoeboids that go around to get their food. And we're gonna confuse them when they blast because they're gonna think that there's food. And so I said, well, let me see what we can do. We can put some seismographs there and then on the top and all the stuff we can do. But let me see what she's worried about. So we all had to get the equipment on and we crawled in. And I'm looking at where she's got for instrument or looking at the material that falls from the roof and that sort of thing. And after crawling around for a while, I said, wait a minute. Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen one of these blind wolf fighters? She said, no, but I know they're here. I thought, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Here she says she's getting her PhD on the habitat of these blind wolf fighters. She doesn't even know where they live.
Is there any indication that they even live there?
No, not that I know of, other than somebody else saw something. Anyway, but we accommodated her. We made sure that she was doing well.
Well, that's good. That's what you have to do. The cave, I was in one cave, and it's right next to a quarry.
Oh, absolutely.
And now, so they know, and there's blasting in this quarry, and they know that's my scene. So
exactly,
there are actual Native Americans buried. This is a sacred site, and they don't know how to escalate it because the quarry is encroaching. And blasting towards, and exactly. There are some obvious voids. I mean, there's a cave, so there's some small void systems, and there is dust coming in from the blast already into the cave.
Wow!
So
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's right. And then, so how close are they getting? Right, that's their reserves. So what is the surface perimeter versus where they're allowed to extend the property? It's a small family-run quarry. Yes. They're like, we don't care. This is our rock. This is our livelihood. And I'm calling them and just be like, hey, I don't work for the government. I don't work for anybody. I'm just letting you know you might have a very big problem on your hand if you keep blasting to this direction, because there is very important things and very certain materials. But I also come from the blasting side. So I think they're like, I don't care. So I was like, all right, well, let me call the blasting company that's blasting there. Like, let me let some people know that you might have a huge issue. And I might be, because I'm both in caving and I'm both in blasting, might be
that's interesting. You're in the middle.
Warn you a little bit before the big organizations that have acronyms start coming
I'm
up.
surprised no more environmentalists are involved with that.
Because
you know about it?
The more people know about it, then the more things get stolen, the more people break into the caves.
How do they keep people from knowing?
We keep it a secret.
That's good. They can. Wow.
The caving community is one of the most amazing communities for that. Yeah,
nice.
You do not let anyone know anything. This is, you got to go caving 4 times with somebody and see how they act
sacred
before they come in. And I'm sure it's like that in the lava tubes too. I heard the blasting in the lava tubes or in that area is very, very difficult.
It is very difficult. The type of rock it is. It's a blue rock. The lava, the way the lava flows, it flows in maybe 10 foot or 15 foot flows. Right now, what is it? The one, not Kilauea, but whatever it is. The one that's blowing up now. Yes. So it will flow in maybe 15 foot. And so the gas bubbles come up to the top. It weathers a lot in the first 3 or 4 feet, becomes red. It's very pulverized and easy to blast, but the blue rock is on the bottom. So it keeps coming in layers. So when you blast, you've got these pumice layers of 3 or 4 feet that is very simple. And then the blue rock really, real hard. Then the red, then the blue rock. So it is very challenging to do any blasting in Hawaii, depending on those lava flows, because they may be 500 years apart. And so it's a challenge. We call it AHA lava, A-A lava. And we have it in New Mexico. We have AHA lava exactly the same way because we have a lot of lava flows like that. So I'm kind of used to it, and it's a challenge, but it's fun. It's good.
One of our guests, Mike Balance, who was on the show a long time ago, a few years ago.
2 years ago.
He said he was like, I blasted in all states but 3, I think is what
he said.
And we asked, the most difficult one was the lava flows in Hawaii.
Yeah, interesting.
That really threw him through a loop because you just get really hard rock, you're drilling,
and then pumice.
Almost like a cave.
Yeah, exactly.
And then your energy dissipation through the pumice. Now, is it when you're blasting in that type of in Hawaii on that pumice, or just in the blue rock? Do you treat that as if you're decking?
You do.
Just
sometimes
deck
you
through
do.
the
Absolutely,
pumice?
that's the easiest
thing to do. Or does it still need to be blasted?
Yeah, or just do a soft anfo, but I think we use anfo a lot. No, but in Hawaii you can't bring explosives. The explosives has to come by That's
There's
another thing.
the nickname. There's a woman who's in charge of it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
She's the queen bee of the island.
Oh yeah, for all the islands. If you bring explosives, you have to bring them to the
How did she end up getting
I don't know. It was a long time ago. But in every you have to the Coast Guard. You have to bring your explosives to the Coast Guard and pay them $3,000 or $4,000 just to offload it before the trucks come and get it. And so it's in it, and it comes by barge, of course, and it takes a long time to get. So they really have limited the number of products that they can bring. They've been only using ANFO for years, and then non-L systems and that sort of thing. But the primers, they couldn't bring any high explosives in. That's when I first came there. So we used, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a hard time today.
Just regular dynamite?
No, the two-part stuff you put together.
Kinnepack.
Kinnepack.
Well,
we could only use
brand name.
Kinnepack.
Yeah.
That's all we could
Binary
use.
explosives.
Yeah, and we use them all the time. I use them all the time. I still have some in my storage room because you can keep them.
Yeah.
So we used a lot of Kinnepack because that's all you could bring. You couldn't use high explosives. You couldn't use cast boosters or any kind of other primers in those days. And so, but it was expensive to bring it because every island had a place that the Coast Guard could store them, and it was crazy. It's crazy. You had to be very creative with your blasting with such few products.
Absolutely.
And so now we're okay. We've got bulk trucks coming in. Austin's there with their emulsions.
Bulk trucks.
Yeah, they even have a bulk truck.
Got different types of product now.
Right.
So you can service the rock a little bit better.
Much better. We get more tailor blast with tailor our designs.
Is it is it almost all civil construction, running?
There's quarries.
There, right. So
a lot of
quarries.
But mostly construction. Because there's no mines there. There's no
ore.
No.
Luckily, they're
nothing.
Not, going after that lava.
All quarries for construction. That's it. Yeah.
Interesting. And is it a place that has a lot of blasting? I mean, the rock's so hard you have to blast, right? So
at the time when we were developing a lot of the available land, there's very little now, of course, for these multi-million-dollar homes. There was a lot of blasting. So that's when we were first called in, when we were having problems with the communities. People who built their million-dollar homes then had million-dollar homes made, and they were the ones who were complaining about the development. So,
of course,
but then I think the indigenous population really didn't catch on until there were so many people taking the land around the ocean, and the traffic became terrible. And I think that was something that they really were very upset about, traffic. They haven't developed a lot of the marine environment. They're not allowed to put in
ports,
and terminals, and that sort of thing. And because they have to protect the mammals too. The whales come from the Pacific Northwest or even from Alaska for the winter and have their babies down there.
Now, did I ever ask? I don't know if I ever asked you this, but I would, one time I had this idea of, if I were to do my thesis.
Oh yeah.
I was thinking, because I'm also a scuba diver and I love.
Me too.
I love it. Yeah. It's absolutely one of the best life hacks. You're breathing underwater. You get access to, part of the earth that
do you put photography too?
I a little bit, but not as much as I could.
Stuff, yeah. And I won an award one time.
Really?
Yeah.
With that good, such a good
photo.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
I saw an octopus for the first time. And I was like, oh my God, finally I got to see it.
I know.
It's unbelievable. But
yeah,
I know some people who are marine biologists and they study in Iceland, they study whales, and they can actually, they have shown that the whale watching industry impacts the whales. It negatively impacts the whales. My friend, she was a PhD, and that was her thesis, was that it does, the boats, the engines,
absolutely.
Right?
They get easily harassed.
And the major shipping routes are kind of like building a fence through where they live. That's true. How has there been any real study on the pressure pulse really far away on, let's say, a sperm whale or certain whales? Is there information on that?
That's what we do. We put microphones in. We just got done with one in Ketchikan, where NMFS, the National Marine Fisheries Services, are starting to now regulate blasting on land, because they say that pulse gets into the water. So what Brent and I did, and I don't know if you know, the herring fishermen in New Jersey, NMFS came to them too and said, they want to regulate everything, blasting, fishing, everything. The literature in underwater acoustics and the effect on mammals and the sea life is this thick, but it's stuff that was done with different kind of sensors and in technology and they don't understand the energy that comes from man-made energy. They use when we use pressure sensors, we do PSI numbers, you understand, but they turn it into decibels, and it narrows down the range over which you can operate. That's what I think is acoustic, acoustics,
Right.
sound and acoustic is very difficult to deal with because we have a hard time with our blasting to say this is what kind of decibel level we're going to be, and it's all decibels. So long story short, NIMS came to the herring fishermen in New Jersey, just about 3 years ago, and said, we're going to regulate, or we're going to watch what you're doing. So they put sensors on all the fishermen's boat. I could see where they were taking the herring. I don't know if the herring was, if they're endangered, or I don't think that was the issue. I don't know what it was, why they did that. And then after about a year, they said, okay, now we want to put one of our people on all your boats. It's going to cost you $700 a day for our people to be on your boat as a watch. We're going to watch. That's when the fishermen said, no. So they sued NIMS. It went to the Supreme Court, and it's called the Chevron Doctrine, and you can see it online. And they won. They absolutely won. And so they told NIMS to, go take a flying hike. So it was called the Chevron.
I wouldn't want to put an intern pretty much on a fishing boat.
Well, they do.
That's dangerous, let alone.
Well, yeah, but I know it is. Of course, yeah, they're insured.
The person.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean,
for the scientist.
Yeah,
I support. I think there should be some oversight, but anyone on a fishing boat
because
shouldn't be.
Exactly. You can their liability and all that sort of stuff. So, but still, the Chevron Doctrine. The Chevron years ago, NIMS came in and said all your acoustic sensing for looking for oil and gas in the bottom of the ocean floor and all the testing, you're hurting the animals, whatever. So Chevron sued them, and they won. And so anybody where NIMS is trying oversight, we use that Chevron Doctrine to show that they have no business telling us how to do our business. And so blasting underwater, we had to deal with that when we did the Panama Canal and around Kilvan Call. Albert and I were very busy doing underwater sensors. We developed systems for underwater pressures and that sort of thing, and data acquisition systems. 15 years ago, there wasn't really. Now the data acquisition systems were like this. Now they're like this.
Yes.
And so, anyway, long story short, we understood NIMS. We understood mammals. We were very careful with certain fish, because Native Americans want their salmon. We have to deal with them.
Kristen has a very nice paper that she did with that. With the salmon, I remember that.
What was that?
Where she had them like kind of in the cage and they were close by.
That was my job. Yeah, we hired her to do that. Yeah. So because I met her at South Dakota. Was it Crazy Horse? When we were doing our South Dakota, it was Crazy Horse. She came because she was an underwater. She was a fisheries person, and she was getting a master's in fisheries in Alaska. And at Crazy Horse during our conferences, or Best in the West, I forgot what it is. All the students from South Dakota School of Mines were in the front row, and she was there. And so I gave my talk. She jumped up after I gave my talk, said, I have all this data that I've from Instantel used to have underwater pressure sensors or whatever. And she had borrowed that, and she had all this in these little streams where the fish, the fish were going up to
spawn.
Yeah, the spawn. And she said, I have all this information. I don't know what to do with it. And she was just throwing seismographs out, and they were blowing up some of the bridges for removal of trees and that sort of thing. All the big logging trucks would come in. They have to put bridges here and there and whatever, and they were all overgrown, and they were choking up the rivers.
Yeah.
And so they needed to blow it out. And she was a student, and so she was working for a consulting company at that time. And so I don't know what to do with the data. I said, can you get on a plane and come to Albuquerque? I'll pick you up. You stay with me for 2 weeks, and you can work with all my graduate students. Got it all done. Everything was analyzed, and everything was fine. She was very grateful for that. And then I realized this girl's smart. And so then we got the lowering of the Columbia River with Albert. I called her right away. I said, can you come? She said, and it was wintertime. She didn't have anything to do. So she came down, helped us. And I said, I also that was the San Francisco Bay when I needed a boat. Then we had her come when we were getting rid of the piers for the San Francisco Bay. I had her come to do that too. That was when I had Brent and Juana. So we had a whole team. But we helped her with that. And I knew this girl was smart, so I kept in touch with her. I wasn't doing anything in Alaska at that time. San Francisco Bay Bridge, I had to take out all the piers from the big earthquake that took out the San Francisco Bay Bridge, damaged it. They built a new bridge on top of it, but kept the old one. Hewitt got the job to demolish that bridge.
Okay.
And that's when Albert got the pier. He got that job to do the piers. And then we got the job from Caltrans to do the monitoring for the fish. That's when I had her come down. That's when we made our really big advance. And so she came to help us on that. And it was an amazing project. And that's when I hired her as just like a full-time person to do all our fish stuff. And it was tough because we had to combat nymphs and a lot of what they wanted to do. Now what they do is get on boats and watch. And then I think it was after that we did the Columbia River, and I had her come in, and that's when nymphs imposed them. So we had to pay them to be on their boats to watch for mammals and fish. And it was expensive and it was tough.
Oh,
it was really tough to work with them because they didn't understand what we were doing and how we protected, because it was underwater, it wasn't in the water. So that was okay. So we deal with them, we put up with them. They want to know the PSI in the water immediately after the blast, so we have to have the turnaround really quick. I mean, it was a lot of pressure. Now all of a sudden, I was a blast consultant for DOT in Alaska for about 8 years, and now all of a sudden they are wanting now, when you're doing anything on land 200 or 300 feet away, they want hydrophones in the water to see how you're harassing the mammals. And then we just got done with that study.
No, so what I was wondering was how, because I have some friends in that industry, are there sensors on the actual whales? Like, was there data that's coming? Like they're tracking them. Let's say that I think that would be, because
they don't track.
Here's a number you're harassing a whale. What is this whale harassing? They can communicate thousands of feet.
They can't even watch them. They can't even go underwater to watch them.
So if you blast, are the whales leaving?
They don't use whales. I know they don't use whales.
Seals?
No, they use gerbils. They use gerbils and rabbits and other animals that are mammals. They use mammals in a lab situation to say that's the whole thing. If you look at this research, this tons of research, it was done on animals, because they have the same hearing, audio sensitivity. And that's the thing. That's what we have had to do blasting where there's bald eagles nests at nighttime. We're doing the blasting, and we have to bring in these specialists with night vision goggles, and they look and they stand there and watch while we blast at night. And because bald eagles have the same audio sensitivity as we do, they can't hear anything below 20 hertz, and they can't hear anything. And so we had a project with McCollum in Oregon where it was right next to the cemetery. We had blast at night for a huge project with a new bridge. It was they put us through all kinds of crap. And so they had their night vision lady there at night, 11 o'clock we shot, and she sat there watching this bald eagle that we were going to harass. Didn't even leave the nest. Didn't even hear anything. And so that's what we're put up with. We have to go through all kinds of, we have to deal with telling them how we're going to do everything. And they have their own models. We have our models. Their models are nothing like we have because they're based on other animals or birds or whatever. And that's the problem, is it's what they say, what we say, and they have no regulatory authority of our blasting. NIMS has no regulatory authority, but we have to. Every state has a fisheries agency that we have to get approval.
That's awful. I had an opportunity to do a blast, and in a city that was really close to a zoo.
Oh yeah, same thing.
And I was very excited. I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes! Like this is great."
You can watch them.
Yeah, and I talked to a Vibrant a company, and they were like, "Yeah, let's get some seismographs." So I said, "I want
sound. The sound is a big.
I want all the sensors.
Yep.
Every sensor you have, sensors I don't even know exist.
Exactly.
Whatever your new stuff is, I want to go into the different cages of these animals. And put, how does a lion react?
Exactly.
To this glass?
Absolutely.
How does a feline versus the ape?
And with videos, did you have video cameras too?
I got so excited. I was like, this just landed in my lap.
Of course.
It's going to be the most fun.
Exactly.
And and they were like, no, we don't allow blasting in our city. And I'm like, so they're just sitting there for months with a hammer.
I know.
I wanted to know what's the difference between a few millisecond of a blast, right? How that impacts the animals.
Oh, absolutely.
But then I think the funny thing would have been like,
it's horrible that.
But the fact that you just keep them in a cage their entire life is probably a little more detrimental
than exactly it is.
Few milliseconds. So when it comes to the eagle,
right,
and the fact that I did not know they have similar auditory system that we have. What other kind of animals? So fisheries, mammals, eagles. Has there been other ones that you've come across through this situation? I mean, the blind wolf spiders now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a vibratory. Sometimes it's hearing, sometimes it's just the impact on their body and that
What
sort
about
of thing.
dust control?
Dust control.
Have you, or because you're a vibration expert, so it's probably not the same, but has that been kind of a...
No dust. Yeah, and dust has been a problem because it was in Hawaii, because people don't like dust in their multi-million-dollar homes. And so what the blaster company, well, the contractor will clean buildings after they're done. But dust is funny. All you need is just some spraying on top. They have a water truck go around and spray on top. And it's really, the dust is really the stemming that gets ejected. So you can control that fairly well. And we were able, and when dust fences, Hawaii uses dust fences. They're about 10 feet tall, and they're just plastic fences. And that makes a huge difference. And that's almost law in Hawaii. Okay. Use dust fences in the wet. And it works.
And
works very well. Yeah.
I've seen a video of a remote controlled water sprayer set on the side of the blast.
Exactly.
And just before the blast, they'll turn it off, and there's no fly rock or injection. It's so well controlled.
Do you think, coming back to underwater blasting and blasting on the floor of rivers or oceans and doing these cage studies that you talked about, that was something that was a job that Kristen had gotten, and she had me come because we had the equipment. But because she was a fisheries person, she understands harassment of immature salmonoids, smaller fish in particular. And in that particular case, and we did the same thing on the Columbia River, is the regulatory people put cage fish, and they put it at certain PSI so that they can do necropsies afterwards to see what kind of damage there might have been in internal organs, that sort of thing.
And the fish bladder,
the bladders, or all different types of eye pops, and anal protrusions. There's all kinds of things that can damage fish when you're close in, and harass them, that sort of thing. The problem with doing those sort of things, and this is something we've done on a lot of underwater blasting jobs, is harassment, just scaring them. But the problem is, you take these fish, you put them in cages, they're already harassed, they're confined in this netting, and their level of anxiety has already gone up so high. And so they're sitting there watching with cameras underwater, their reaction. And so to me, it was already tainted before you can even get any data on that. And so in this particular one that Kristen and I did, it was just a simple jump pool coming from a stream into a lake. And it was just one blast. And the fish didn't do anything. They just sat there and didn't do anything. But it was fun because we put geophone sensors everywhere just to see what the pressures were, and then to visually look at their reaction.
I think Dr. Worthy, he's always a smart aleck, and he's so fun. And he goes, yeah, the worst part about that was the blast didn't kill anyone, or kill any of the fish, but the scalpel that cut all the fish up open killed all the fish.
That's exactly. The necropsy afterwards, they do. Yeah.
That's 100% death rate.
Absolutely. They look for damage. And
well, you got to do that kind of science.
Yeah, you do.
To prove that is actually not having the impact, and you can take that and see, does that work with hellbenders in Missouri?
Exactly.
We got to do something for, they are becoming endangered species. So we got to play ball.
Exactly.
We're messing up, something's messing up, and we got to fix it. And we can show, okay, this isn't it. Something else is causing it, but this isn't it,
Exactly.
So I would think that that's quite interesting. And now one of our podcast episodes was with Jerry Wallace, and he was talking about how the smolt and blasting different dams to make sure that the temperatures it was colder and it wouldn't get too hot that the smolt would die. Have you had experience? Was that anything?
Not with
any charts like that?
No, not with temperature like that. It was just more like harassment, the different levels that have been tested in laboratory conditions or for other species, and they're trying to expand. It's really just different levels of harassment where they change direction, that sort of thing, but nothing on temperature. We've never done anything quite like that. I think it's just where they were, and I think this is valid. They're going after some food, and then they hear this sound, this pressure, and then they divert their travel, and it's where they change their direction of travel, and then the different other levels of damage, actual damage. But you just don't take a whale out of the ocean to look to see how you damage it. You just assume that you're going to damage them at certain PSI levels or decibel levels, and it really has not been validated. But yet we still have to adhere to their levels.
I tell you, I think we probably could go to SeaWorld.
Yeah, I think so.
And you go listen. They got they got concerts now.
Exactly.
They're
They do.
concerts at
Absolutely.
SeaWorld. And like, let's see what really is happening here.
You're right.
And put some sensors here and agree whether or not we're making any damage. You've got rap music going off, and that's crazy, So when it comes to doing bridge piers, you mentioned how you had to get rid of the old bridge piers it was San Francisco Bay?
Mm-hmm, yes, it was him.
What was the conditions like in that situation? Because it's not just whales, there's other kind of species. Was there a big focus on that as well in the bay, or were you more worried with other variables?
Well, the BART tube goes across there, so the trains go in a concrete tunnel, if you will. So we had to put sensors on the tunnel, on the inside of the tunnel, which was good. We can compare the vibrations on the concrete walls of the tunnel of the trains going by versus the blasting. So that was an interesting study. And then there was a sewer outfall pipe of cleaned up water, going out into the ocean that we had to put accelerometers on. So in that regard, we had to Caltrans hired underwater divers, commercial divers, to put that. And they had the little headphones on, and they had little walkie-talkies on there, the little voices up like this. And we could tell them where to put the sensors and how to clap them onto this, and then bring up the wires and put them on our barge where we had our instrumentation. So that was interesting. So we could look at the accelerations, because again, they're interested in comparing blasting with earthquakes. They understand earthquakes. Caltrans understands earthquakes, but they didn't understand the impacts on underwater infrastructure, on in-water blasting or pier blasting that was through it's in water. So that was very interesting. We learned a lot on that, and worked with instrumentation companies to kind of modify our pressure sensors and the way we put things out. So I think that job was very, very telling, and we use a lot of that data now to predict in-water pressures for other jobs. There are other bridges right now that are being demolished. The piers now, there's one on the Fraser River in north of Vancouver, and there's one that Jerry and I are working on in Portland, the Burnside Bridge. So they're planning. There's a lot of bridges that are being renovated. There's a lot of infrastructure we need to get rid of. So pier bridge blasting is really important now to understand the impacts on the fish, mostly salmon.
Okay.
In the Pacific Northwest.
I thought today in your presentation, it was interesting how you had mentioned, by the way, for our listeners, we're at KBC here. We just finished the conference. You did your presentation and you happened to have caught an earthquake on your seismograph. And you want to go into that, and how you just mentioned how that, some people are looking at vibrations when it comes to decibels. And they're looking for it that way. And then, but you got this other organization that's looking at it for earthquakes.
Right.
And so you're like, okay, we got to play on all these different levels with these different variables. Would you explain a little bit about how that played out, and a little bit about your presentation and how that worked with the fact that you caught the earthquake and how you utilized that information?
Well, yeah, that's right. Because a lot of our infrastructure or facilities that we design is designed by structural engineers who rely on earthquakes to be the design limit, the rules, the design limit. I should have asked you if you were doing that.
Now that I've mentioned it.
No. Okay. What was I saying? The design of certain structures are predicated on earthquakes, and there are standards throughout the United States with prior earthquakes. We know what they are and so what the levels are, and so acceleration is the metric of choice for a lot of the design of our infrastructure, and that's what structural engineers know. And when it comes to blasting, of course, we use velocity, and so we have to somehow take that velocity and turn it into something that they understand with earthquakes. And many of these structural engineers are used to earthquakes that last for 1 to 2 minutes. And blasting does not, blasting is instantaneous, it's transient. It only takes a few seconds. And so they don't understand that blasting is not like an earthquake. And so the problem is we have to play their game. We have to take the information that we get from blasting, or if we're lucky to get an earthquake, and show them that the blasting is not as damaging as an earthquake is. in this particular case, I was working with Kristen Colden. Kristen was working, she was the instrumentation person for this dam spillway in Southern California. And she called me and said she had just looked at the information she had acquired for blasting that day and saw that there was this very long waveform. She only had things, there were seismographs set up for 4 or 5 seconds, but she said it was very unusual. And she said, I think we got an earthquake. And of course, you're right in the mountains in California where there's lots of earthquakes. And I told her, yes, that's probably an earthquake. And I got excited and I said, for some reason, it just came to my mind that I said, I think that's just a precursor. You're going to have a big one in a few hours. So quickly get onto your seismographs and increase the time history to record at least a minute, the full minute. And so she did. And lo and behold, we got a 7.1 magnitude earthquake just 5 hours later. And so we got that recording. And I said, this is very valuable. And so what we did was say, let's write an article for the ISE Journal. And that's what we did. So I called Dee Dee and told her about this. I said, just give me a page and a half, 2 pages in the ISE Journal. And so we did. We compared the earthquake vibrations that were recorded at a water tank at this spillway to what a blast would be. And the blast was really tiny. It was just I think it was 2 seconds, a minute, a second and a half. That's all. And then we compared it to the 60 seconds and laid it on top of each other. Then we took the peak velocity and put it on the U.S. Bureau of Mines curve. The frequency low. I think the peak was I don't know. It was 8 inches per second at 2 hertz, and then the regular blast was way down. So the earthquake definitely exceeded the limits. And so we named that article, Mother Nature Can Exceed, break the law, but man can't. And so, people don't think about that. Mother Nature has more impact on our infrastructure than blasting does. And people don't understand that. I mean, a lot of owners of infrastructure and developers and regulators, they don't think about what Mother Nature does. Temperature, humidity does to drywall, all that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
That's a big part of the conversation. So where were your seismographs at when it caught the
it was at the spillway.
At the spillway.
Yeah, at the spillway. She had several of them there. Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Oh, it was.
She had the notification that she had an earthquake. She's like, we didn't blast, so what was that event? So good on her to be paying attention.
Oh yeah, she called me. I'm glad she called me.
Yeah, like, oh look, this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's and have you now taken that data and used it with a client and said, oh, yes. Now here you go.
Now I teach with that. I mean, we were very lucky to record that, and it's great to record winds, and all other kinds of things, all the things that Mother Nature throws at us that causes concern and stress on buildings and infrastructure, and say, look, our blasting is we blast so we do not cause distress on our structures. We know how to blast to limit and do any damages to structures. But look what Mother Nature does. So I don't know if it doesn't really, they don't really look at that and understand what it's about. And I think that's something that I'd like to do is more writing and materials like a case study book that brings that to light for everybody. And a lot of these regulators won't look at any of your data unless it's published. It's got to be published, peer reviewed. And that's where we've been so busy, we haven't had a chance to do that. So hopefully in the next couple of years, we can take all of this information and put it into a publication so that regulators can see the data, understand the data, and allow blasters to do what they do best. And,
absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on the Impromptu podcast. I really appreciate having you again. And definitely, if we get another opportunity, do a little more and get a little more history from your side.
That'd be great.
This was a great conversation about impacts on waterways.
Exactly.
So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for doing this. I think it's great. It's good for our industry. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Blast Report podcast. I want to thank the team at Blast Think for producing this show, and please follow along for more episodes in the future, and share this podcast with your colleagues so we can continue to honor our industry and the people in it. Be safe and have a blast.